functional training on the Biodex. We do not need to use the CPU here. We can just click on the controller, and it's in setup mode right now, which is where you want it, right in the middle. We're going to hit the standby, which gets these two lights blinking. We always want to make sure that we start with our passive speed all the way down, and we want to start with our range of motion at about 60%, just in case we make a mistake. We don't do the full range of motion. So I'm going to hit on, and we're going to set the range of motion in direction 1 first. Direction 1 here is the up direction. We're going to be starting with right shoulder scapular flexion extension. So I'm going to go a little past neutral because we're going to be creating a whole body motion. I'm going to stop just short of the automatic stop. I'm going to hit 1, and then we're going to go down into the end range motion here, which will be about right there, and that's going to be our second stop. Now from there we can get the machine going, and we can show the athlete what's going on with this. I'm going to go over to the passive mode. People forget to do that, and then they wonder why nothing happens over here. You do have to go to passive mode, okay, and make sure that this is turned down. See how this high speed enable was blinking? That's because it was the speed was set all the way up. It's smart enough to know not to let me turn it on when it's at a high speed. So we get it down to a slow speed, that stops blinking, and then from here we're going to make sure that everybody's clear of the machine. In fact, we will have a taped out area that we ask the athlete and family members to be outside of unless given permission to go inside, and we'll have an entry door here just to ensure people not getting hit by that arm. So, and the torque limits here, we're going to set that down to about 40 at first, just to make sure that a person doesn't overdo it at first, because eccentric contractions, especially at in-range joint motions, can cause injury. You know, nice thing about an eccentric contraction is the athlete is controlling the resistance, not the machine, and we'll show you how that works in just a second. So I'm going to hit start here, and now that arm is going to start going through its range of motion. Okay. It's going to be going up and down like that. Okay. For the up direction, I'm going to increase that. And I'm going to go all the way to 100% on that. Same thing with the down position. So right now I have that at 20 degrees per second, so I'm going to let the athlete get used to that. They're going to walk in here, put their arm on this, and just get used to being brought through this range of motion. And I should make mention that I have this elevated all the way to the 47 mark. That's as high as it'll go. I'm trying to keep the athlete pretty low here, staying in a nice functional squat position, and then I'm going to tell the athlete to just gently, about 50%, resist this on the way up. So I'm resisting, 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 and then help it on the way down. I'm helping on the way down. And I'm trying to isolate that at the shoulder, but we're stabilizing at the core and trying to get the athlete used to not using their entire body. Since I have a torque limit set eccentrically at 40 pounds here, if I press more than 40 pounds, this thing is going to shut down and not resist me anymore. But it's important to know that it works just as hard as you do. If you put one finger's pressure on it, then it's going to put one finger pressure back. If I turn up the torque especially, and I put my whole body on there, it's going to put that much force back. So it matches my resistance pound for pound. Important for the athlete to know that, because they work only as hard as they can work without working into pain. Do not work into pain, especially joint pain. This is going to make you sore later anyway, because it's a very efficient contraction, and it's going to traumatize muscle tissue, and that's how muscles get stronger. But you definitely do not want pain while you're doing it, because then the soreness will last for weeks instead of for days. So I'm helping the machine. Now I'm applying about 60%, and then I'm resisting it on the way up. I have the core stabilized. I'm getting into a nice functional pattern. And see how I can move my body a little bit to change that axis of rotation to protect joints. And that's why we always do it slow first, just to get a feel for the motion. And again, I'm resisting, and it's that transition point that really provides for an explosive motion. And then from there, we can increase the speed. So now this is 90 degrees. Now if this thing hits me, it's going to hurt, right? So we stay out of the way of the moving arm. But now we're going to step in here. I'm resisting on the way up, helping on the way down. Resisting on the way up, helping on the way down. Resisting, keeping the core nice and stable, helping on the way down, resisting on the way up, helping on the way down, resisting on the way up. And then we can do a set there and then go to full speed. And so that's flexion. To do extension, we go back down slow. We have our arm on the other side. So we're resisting on the way down. This is more vulnerable. You got to be careful. Keep nice and low. Helping on the way up. What's nice about this is, in here in this vulnerable range, you don't have to push as hard, you know? So, because again, you don't want to work into pain. So down here, you can push a little harder. So the shoulder's not as vulnerable. So your resistance actually varies, so that because it is an eccentric movement and it's isokinetic, your resistance will change through the arc, so you can get maximum resistance at each angle. So right here I'm pushing a little harder because I know my shoulder can take that. As I get to the top where my shoulder is more likely to get injured, I'm not going to push quite as hard. So I'm controlling that. And then from there, again, we go into faster speeds, helping the machine, resisting the machine. Helping the machine, resisting the machine. And you can make this kind of sport specific by rolling, the forearm as well. But that's going to be shoulder flexion extension. And then